Please listen to this true life story. Mike was a simple man with a big heart. He was a businessman in Lagos, Nigeria, with a small but successful construction company. He'd always been a family man, focused on providing a good life for his loved ones. But above all, Mike loved his wife, Esther, with every ounce of his being. Their love story had begun many years ago, when they met in university. Esther had been everything Mike had ever dreamed of: beautiful, kind, and intelligent. They had built their lives together, starting with humble beginnings, working long hours to make ends meet, and eventually creating the family they had always envisioned. They had 3 children, Tolu, Chuka, and Zainab. Mike adored them more than anything. He was proud of his family, often bragging about his children to his friends and colleagues. They were his pride and joy, and he couldn't imagine a life without them. Esther, his wife, was always by his side, and together, they formed the perfect picture of a happy, loving couple. Mike's best friend, Emeka, had been a part of his life for as long as he could remember. They had met in secondary school, and their bond had grown stronger over the years. Emeka was the kind of man who always seemed to know how to have fun, how to lighten the mood in any situation. He was a great guy, always there when Mike needed him, and Mike trusted him with his life. The 3 of them, Mike, Esther, and Emeka, shared many good times together, laughing and celebrating life's little victories. But what Mike didn't know was that these times, while filled with joy, were masking a dark secret that would soon unravel his entire world. One fateful evening, after a casual dinner party at their home, Mike sat down to chat with Emeka. The conversation turned serious when Emeka suddenly looked at him with a somber expression. "Mike," Emeka said softly, "there's something I need to tell you. It's not easy, but I can't keep this from you any longer." Mike's heart skipped a bit, sensing that something was off. "What is it, Emeka? You're scaring me." Emeka hesitated for a moment, his eyes darting toward the ground. "Mike, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to hurt you." Mike was confused, his mind racing, trying to understand what Emeka was saying. "What do you mean? What happened?" After a long pause, Emeka took a deep breath and continued, "Mike, those children of yours, they're not yours. They're mine." Mike's world seemed to stop at that moment. He could barely comprehend what Emeka had just said. "What?" Mike's voice was barely a whisper. Emeka lowered his gaze, unable to meet Mike's eyes. "It started a few years ago. You were busy with work, and Esther, she needed someone. We started seeing each other in secret. I never planned for things to go that far, but they did. And now, the truth has come out. Tolu, Chuka, Zainab, they are my children, Mike. Not yours." Mike sat there, stunned, as if the floor had been pulled out from under him. He couldn't process it. His best friend. His wife. The children he had raised, loved, and cared for as his own. All of it was a lie. "Why didn't you tell me?" Mike finally managed to choke out. "Why, Emeka?" "I was afraid," Emeka admitted, his voice breaking. "I thought it would destroy everything, our friendship, your marriage. I never wanted to hurt you. And Esther, she begged me to keep it a secret. She didn't want to lose you, Mike. But I can't hide this anymore." Mike didn't know what to feel. His heart was torn between betrayal, anger, and sadness. How could Esther do this to him? How could Emeka, his best friend, betray him in the worst way possible? The next few days were a blur for Mike. He barely spoke to Esther, who seemed equally devastated by the revelation. He couldn't look at her without feeling a deep sense of betrayal, but he also saw the pain in her eyes. She had made a choice, one that had destroyed their family, and now she was paying the price for it. "Mike, please," Esther begged one evening, her voice trembling. "I never meant to hurt you. I love you. I thought we were happy. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but I never stopped loving you. Mike stood in the doorway, his eyes hollow. How could you do this to me, Esther? How could you lie to me for all these years? She broke down in tears, pleading for forgiveness, but Mike didn't know if he could ever forgive her. He had always thought his family was his sanctuary, a place of trust and love. Now, it felt like everything had been shattered in an instant. Over time, Mike began to distance himself from both Emeka and Esther. The children, too, seemed to notice the tension and began asking questions, but Mike couldn't bring himself to explain the pain he was feeling. He wasn't ready to share the truth with them, he wasn't sure if he ever would be. As the months passed, Mike tried to move on with his life, but the wound never fully healed. He still loved the children, but every time he looked at them, he saw the face of betrayal. He still cared deeply for Esther, but the love they once shared seemed irreparably broken. He tried to find solace in his work, in his friends, but nothing could replace the hurt he felt deep down. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. He ran into Tolu, the eldest child, now a teenager, at a local cafe. She was sitting alone reading a book, her face reflecting the same sadness that Mike had felt for so long. He sat down across from her, unsure of what to say. "Hey, Tolu," Mike said gently, his voice full of uncertainty. She looked up, her eyes meeting his. There was a flicker of recognition, but also a sense of sadness, like she had known something was off all along. "I know things have been strange lately," Mike continued. "I just want you to know that I'm here for you. No matter what, you're still my child. You always will be." Tolu smiled faintly, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "I know, Dad. I know." Mike realized that, despite everything that had happened, the love he had for his children was real. It wasn't about blood, it was about the bond they shared, the years of laughter, the lessons, and the memories. While he could never forget what had happened, Mike began to understand that sometimes, life was full of painful lessons. And sometimes, those lessons led to healing in unexpected ways. As for his relationship with Esther, they never fully reconciled, but Mike came to accept that healing wasn't a straight line. He focused on being the best father he could be, and he slowly started to rebuild his life, one day at a time. This story is a fictional exploration of betrayal, love, and the emotional complexity of relationships.